How we keep track of things. And there are also yellow sheets, which are what we call our nonverbal sheets, if you just want to give us a comment without speaking. You're ready? We're waiting for you. So I would like to call the meeting of, this is a special meeting of the Camarillo City Council to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Tremblay.
Here.
Councilmember Kildee.
Here.
Vice Mayor Craven.
Here.
Mayor McDonald.
Here, thank you. And the record will reflect that Mr. Morgan is absent. Mr. Tremblay, could you lead us in the flag salute, please?
Thank you. Please place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda would be public comments. So this is anyone who wants to speak to us on an item not on the agenda. And I do not have any speaker sheets for that. Okay, see no one come forward. We will move on to our agenda item. Are they on the agenda item? Okay, that was for non-agenda items. Yeah, so now we'll move on to the agenda item. The purpose and the reason we are here this morning at our special meeting is the consideration of order of review of Planning Commission decision RPD 200 Oakmont Senior Living. And I'll just give a brief introduction to it since I'm the one that called this meeting. And under our ordinance and our procedures, the mayor does have the authority to do that, to call a special council meeting. And the purpose today is simply to decide whether the council wants to order that order of review. So today we're not making a decision on the project. We're simply making the decision to decide whether at a future meeting to then discuss the project in full. Obviously, I think if those of you who were at the meeting we had on Wednesday, I think the city attorney mentioned the fact that you need to know a little bit about the project in order to make that decision. So we'll have, brief comments, I know, from the applicant and some discussion among ourselves, and then obviously we will take speakers' sheets and allow the public to address us as well. But when you make your comments today, just keep in mind that it's not a yay or nay on the project. It's simply, do we move it on and then have another agenda item in a future regular meeting to discuss it. So that's the reason that we are here today. I will tell you why I asked for it. I think that as we are the elected officials in the city of Camarillo, we are elected by the public to represent them in all matters that concern the city. Our Planning Commission is an appointed body. We appoint the Planning Commission, and there are times when the public does object to or disagree with something the Planning Commission does, and under our rules, that can be appealed to the City Council. There is a procedure where you can do it on an individual basis. With that, you do have to pay a fee. Some people ask, well, why do you have a fee? Well, it usually is just if you didn't have some incentive to be sincere about it, everyone would, you'd have an appeal on almost everything. So that's the reason behind that. You can file appeal. You can pay the fee. If you prevail in your request, then that fee is refunded. The other mechanism is for the City Council to discuss it, and then the City Council orders that order of review. So why did I decide to go ahead and take the City Council route this morning? My feeling was that we had enough members of the public, basically a community that surrounds this project, that had come to us with their questions, and I felt it was a good example of when the City Council needs to take that next step and simply do a review. Can't tell you which way the vote would go, one way or another, but simply take that extra time to look at this project and give the community a chance to be involved in that final decision for another time, and allow the City Council to also review it. when we get down to it, I have some other reasons personally in my own review of the matter, but that was just to set the tone for why we're here and why I thought it was important that the City Council have the opportunity to make the decision whether we do indeed move forward with this. So with that, I will turn it over to the Assistant City Manager who's with us this morning. I know you want to say a few words, and we'll go to the City Attorney, and then we'll turn it over to our Director of Community Development. So, Mr. Fox.
Thank you, Your Honor, and I got my green light on, but it doesn't sound like it might.
Is your white light on
It's not
too?
working. Maybe the one on the microphone there, Tom, that little
I see the green.
down under and the.
No. Oh, see, now you're going to have to move down one from top.
Okay, there we
There
go.
you go.
All the lights are on and it seems to be working. Thank you. And actually, you provided a good introduction, so I won't recap everything you just said, but I do want to run through that this meeting is procedural as you described, and so I will, in a moment, turn this over to our City Attorney. He may have a little bit more to add just to clarify the procedures. But understanding that while it's procedural, you still have to have some understanding of the project. And so Mr. Vodka, our Community Development Director, is here available to answer any questions you might have initially on the project. And then we also have the applicant available who will be making a brief presentation just to provide an overview of the project, which again we want to clarify that the project is not before you for decision, but it certainly helps to have some understanding of the project as you discuss the procedure. So with that in mind, I will turn it over to our attorney, Mr. Perrick, and then from there, Mr. Vodka will be available to answer any questions.
Yes, thank you. So the Planning Commission adopted two resolutions at their meeting on May 16th of 2017. One of them was a resolution approving a negative declaration, and the second resolution was a resolution adopting a residential plan development. We call that RPD, and in this case it was RPD 200. Those decisions, adopting those resolutions, will become final unless there is either an appeal or an order of review submitted by 5 p.m. today. And that is one of the reasons why the meeting was scheduled this morning. In the event the council does not approve the order of review, to provide anyone that wishes to file an appeal time to do so this afternoon. The process for an order of review, and this is in your agenda report, is set forth in the Camarillo Municipal Code. The section number is 1916-320D. And what that basically provides is that the council may, by a majority vote of its total membership, issue an order of review. And what that would mean is that it would require at least 3 council members to vote in favor of the order of review in order for the order of review to be issued. If there's not 3 votes of the council in favor, then no order of review would be issued, in which case the decision of the Planning Commission would become final unless an appeal is filed by 5 p.m. today. So the suggested action is in the agenda report is for the council to consider whether or not to make a motion to issue an order of review of the 2 resolutions that were adopted by the Planning Commission. Both the mayor and Mr. Fox have accurately stated what the purpose is of the meeting this morning, and that is to determine whether or not the council wants to issue an order of review. This is not going to be a decision on the project itself. I understand that Mr. Vaca is available to answer questions about the project, and also that the applicant is here available to make a short presentation with regard to the project, so at least you have some information about the project itself upon which you can then make your decision as to whether to issue an order of review. So I could respond to questions if you have any on the process at this point.
Any questions?
Okay, then I think if you have no questions for Mr. Baca, then I believe the applicant is present to and available to make a presentation on the project.
Okay, Mr. Vaca, do you have anything to add?
No, but I am available for any questions.
Thank you. So we will start with the applicant, and let me give the rules of the House, so to speak. I think most of you have been here, but you have 3 minutes to address us. We are going to give the applicant a little bit extra time so he can explain the project. So every speaker gets 3 minutes. The clock counts down. When it gets to 1 minute, it turns yellow. It gives you an idea to kind of wrap things up. We ask that you state your name for the record because we do want to televise this, and also it's being recorded. So the other rule, no clapping, applauding, booing, hissing. We try to stay neutral in the audience so that everyone feels comfortable talking, because not always do we have total agreement. So with those rules, we'll begin.
Well, good morning, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Bill Mabry with Oakmont Senior Living. We are the applicant for the project. I'd just like to kind of go over the project a little bit with you this morning. I think one of the things you kind of should know a little bit about us, Oakmont Senior Living, we're a family-owned company and business and been doing this for over 20 years all throughout the state of California. We have a lot of pride in what we do and the type of buildings and construction that we bring forward to the community, and we search very long and hard to try proper locations and things for our future residents. And we found this particular site and felt, due to the zoning and its location, that it was absolutely ideal. We tried very hard to find infill, what we would call infill properties and projects, so that our residents are not out of town or have to move to another community. And so we look for places where we feel that our residents can still feel very close and a part of the city that they have either grown up in or worked in or have retired in. So this site was very attractive to us. Over the last year, we've worked very, very closely with staff. We've had a number of planning changes and design changes. Staff has been very diligent on keeping our size and shape of our building to to fit well within the community and on the property. What I'd like to do is just kind of go through a little bit here. One of the things I did want to mention as we did move forward with the project, that just wanted to let the council know that through all of this, even though this is a senior project, we have not asked for any bonuses or variances or concessions. We stayed well within the zoning code and regulations set forth within the city and direction from staff. So just kind of moving forward here, these are renderings that we did on the project. We felt that it was really important that people get a very good idea of what the building would look like. So these are computer renditions of the property. Here is actually a shot on Fountain, looking across from our neighbors, which kind of gives you an example of. You can see that there is a grasscrete fire lane with bollards that's required by fire for access only during emergencies. And this is not an emergency response location for an ambulance or anything. That all comes to the front of the building. This is strictly in case of a fire. Gives the fire department the access that they need to the back side of the property. And you can see that there's a one-story element that moves up to 2. We have a fairly large setback coming off the street. We'll be doing all the street improvements and landscaping that area that hasn't been done as of yet. This shows the entry on Village at the Park Drive. One of the things that we've done and that staff has helped us with also is that we are taking our decorative paving all the way to the street, which gives a really nice exit and entry to the project. And you can see in the back that on that corner is our delivery area. There's an 8-foot wall there to help with reduction of sound. The trash enclosure was directed to be redesigned through conversations with actually one of our neighbors. So that was all redesigned to keep any kind of noise or odors and as far away as possible from that location. This is just kind of a rear shot of the property, showing the activity areas and the outside dining area that we like to utilize quite often, especially here Camarillo, where the weather's so nice, we want to take advantage of all of that as much as possible. This is what we call a bird's eye view, just trying to give you kind of an overall look on how the project will set on the site. The site's just a little bit over 3 acres, so it gives us, for the size of the building, quite a little bit of room for walkways and pet parks and gardening areas for our residents. One of the things that we really don't do too much, and I'm going to run through this quickly, but just to show that we do the transportation for our residents. Most of our residents come in their mid to late 80s. They're here for assistance. This is a licensed residential care facility for the elderly. So our residents will be using the town car, and transportation needs will be handled for them. This is a typical entry into one of our buildings. We operate, there's a concierge desk here where residents can schedule appointments and people can come and pick them up. We have a bistro in here that everyone can come and sit in the morning and have a cup of coffee and read the paper and meet residents. This is a shot of one of our dining rooms. We have inside the buildings, we have a really nice expedition kitchen area where people can enjoy watching foods being prepared. We operate on a restaurant. We operate as a restaurant. There's no fixed meal times. People can come down for dinner, within a couple hours period as they would wish. They call down and basically make their reservations, let themselves known, and come down on that in that fashion. It's just a quick shot of a typical outside dining area where we try to do breakfast or early evening dinners. It's a private dining area that we've set aside so that people can continue to stay close within the community by having, if someone has one of their clubs or groups that they've always been a member of and it's their turn, for their club or for their card group, our family, we have an area where they can put on their own event. This is just a living room in one of the units. This is a theater. We have theaters in all of our communities now. It's become a very important part. We have movie nights. We have all the usual types of things. Residents can use it for playing home movies and things and reserve it. We also do, of course, a lot of events where we have any kind of festival, like World Series, the basketball finals coming up. All those types of things can take place here in the theater. We have a wellness center, which also includes a massage room for our residents, and part of our area here. This is a hydro tub where if residents have difficulty, would like to enjoy a really nice calming bath, but they have trouble getting out of the tub. This is a special tub where they can step in and utilize. And this is a shot of our wellness center and one of our nurse staff. Fitness is always very important. We always have a lot of fitness organizing. We have a fitness director that makes sure that our residents keep active. It's just a shot of a reading room, card room. We always have a salon, a beauty salon inside the community. We have raised beds, and when we can, and in this particular situation with the size of our setbacks and the large area we have to work with, we do raised beds for the gardening for our residents. And we're a very big proponent of the Memory Care and Alzheimer's Association. This is just a shot of some of our residents and caregivers that are participating in a local event. Right here is the site plan of the project, and this gives kind of an overview of how things are set. I showed you some shots, and here's the fountain, and this is that fire lane that comes in the back here that has to go. That'll be grass-creed, and we're going to plant that as much as the fire department will allow for the weight of their things if they ever need to get back here. We have walk areas throughout here. We have very heavy landscaping. Our landscape architect is here today if you have any questions about that. This is our gardening area. There's a little bocce ball, and we do have a pet park. We are we're pet friendly. So this is all associated in this area back here. The setbacks, here, we're 60 feet to the first story and 80 feet to the second. All of this area here is over 100 feet setback to the wall that sits back here. Our entry, if you come down, the school is located here, to give you an idea. So as you come down Village of the Park, you'll turn in here, and our entry that was set aside in the master plan for this site is right off of Davenport. So our entry is located right here. This is just an overview of some of the details. You can see we do have the stucco walls, the decorative caps around the pet park and around the sides of the building. We do a small wall here with a wrought iron decorative on the top. This way, people can see through into the landscaping, and our residents can also see through. We don't really want to find ourselves in a situation of walling off this beautiful project. So, I know that's a very quick overview of what we had talked about, but I just wanted to let you know that we've come down last night, and we're all here to answer your questions and anything that we can help with.
Great, thank you. Do we have questions?
I have a question, a couple of questions. Could we go back to the previous slide?
That one.
There, that one. So the entry, exit, generally speaking, faces Davenport Street?
Yes, we come in off Village of the Park, and then we come in right here off of Davenport.
Okay.
And then parking is here. There's parking here and also up here.
And then where, is that also the area where emergency response vehicles would come? Not fire in case of a fire, but...
Yeah, emergency response vehicles will enter at the front door.
Okay,
Right
thank
here.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions at this time?
I have one question.
Mr. Kildee?
Yes, we at the Planning Commission to give a report. Did you give the report at the Planning Commission meeting? Were you there?
This presentation?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Anything, Mr. Chairman? At the moment, thank you very much. We might have some before we're done today.
Okay, thank you.
I think I almost said tonight, we're so used to being here at night, I have to remember it's morning.
Yeah, that's okay. It was hard for me to say good morning.
Right, thank you. So any questions from council before we start the public comments? Okay, I'll just remind everyone again that this is just to make a decision whether we will move it on to a order of review and talk about it in depth at another meeting. So we will start. Our first speaker is Debbie Beck, and then it is John Twitzel? I think I did it wrong the other night, too. I apologize.
Hello, Mayor and council members. My name is Debbie Beck. I was here the other evening, and I live at Village of the Park. And real quick, just to let you know, I'm the one who had the 5-year-old and the senior, so I'm kind of the rock in the hard place kind of thing. By all means, the facility itself is beautiful. Nobody has any doubts about that. But the location of it is totally wrong. I'm asking for a review because I went through this initial study, and I can give it to you or I can go through it, but a lot of the data in this is from 15 years old. And I live in the newer version of Village at the Park. We've only been residents there for not even a year and a half, and a lot of the people have just started occupying a lot of those homes in the last couple of months. Things like the traffic study, a lot of the different reports that were done prior to this even being completed. Another thing is I'm also a real estate agent, and I wanted to kind of address, having this facility, could impact our potential property values, because you're in this negative impact study that was approved. It is talking about that there's only going to be a 6-foot wall around the facility, and those people who have those houses that border that facility or look at that facility could be negatively impacted. However, on this report, it says that there would be no negative impact. It also talks about noise, and it talks about traffic. Like I said, I have a 5-year-old. I have a 5-year-old who's a special needs child, who's in trans kindergarten, who has noise issues. If we have, the times that they're talking about having trash and deliveries done is the exact same time that these kids are in school. And it's the exact same time, the shift changes are at also the exact same time as the students are let out of school. And if you look at that, if I walk my daughter to school down from my house, from Bridgehampton to Davenport, I have to cross Bridgehampton. There's no stop signs. Cars are the speed limit's 35 miles an hour, and there's nowhere to stop. Then I have to cross 1, 2, 3 lanes from the assisted living, in addition to the other streets that are there. So I think, one of the reasons that I chose to purchase the home, and my home was almost $1 million, and then to have this was that my daughter could walk to school and that we were that close. And like I said the other night, they were all out riding bikes and playing and doing all of that. They're not going to be able to do this. One of the other things I want to address is that the developer just said that most of their clients are in their late 80s. And that they transport them, yet in the studies it says that they can have their own vehicles. And we talked, about that the other night, and the fact that, you're talking about very little children who are not even as tall as a car. And if you have, I had a mother-in-law who went to Sunrise and lived in an assisted living, so I totally understand. So I'm out of time, but I have, if you want to look at the report, I have it all highlighted in anything that's outdated.
Great, thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and neighbors. First off, I want to apologize for my reaching out to you at the back of the room, stating that there weren't speakers. I did not hear what your initial comment was, so I apologize for that. And thank you for holding this special meeting to actually look and see if we should review it, which, in my professional and personal opinion, I think we should.
Can I interrupt you just a second? The one thing you forgot on your name for the record.
Sorry about that. Name is John Twitchell. I live on Golden Pond.
Thank you.
So a couple areas here. First and foremost, the EIR, along with the negative impact report, have conflicting information on it. Page 26 of 33 of the negative impact report states some conflict with your fire facilities that will serve the area, as does the EIR. The locations and station numbers do not coincide. Which is a big issue, in my opinion, especially being somebody that has 26 plus years in the fire service. Another problem with the proposal is that their Crane Trans group, who did the study on February 3rd of 2017, only studied the trip generation and parking associated with their facility. So having an EIR that was done back as early as 1999, time-stamped of 2001, I think we're way overdue to actually look at the actual traffic that comes through our community. And I bring that to your attention because freeway traffic is routed from the Santa Rosa Road and Pleasant Valley off-ramp, down Pleasant Valley, through Bridgehampton, down Davenport, across Village of the Park Drive, to the sports park that was once sold to all of us residents as just going to be a park that everybody can enjoy, not just a huge soccer field. The amount of traffic that generates on a continual basis going by that senior facility and the school, which is now doubled in size, is going to be problematic. The new housing project on West Park Court, huge 3-story apartment project. It punches through all the way to Lewis Road, all the way to Village at the Park Drive. It's an apartment housing. I would be under the understanding that those students or people that had kids would be going to Rancho Rosal, further impacting our community. The emergency responses, when we talk about emergency responses, and I requested through the Public Information Act, the actual responses in the units that responded to Atria, who Oakmont at the Planning Commission meeting referenced themselves as compatible to. When we talk about emergency response vehicles, anywhere from 1 vehicle up towards to 5 have responded to Atria Las Posas. The majority required 3 units. That would be an engine or a truck, a medic or an ambulance, and a squad, which is your paramedic. So when we're talking about responses of 217 times into a community, let's multiply that by 3 and talk about the vehicles and the different routes that they're going to take to come into our community. Let's be transparent in that. I think we really, really need to have a new EIR done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Matt Lormer and then Sarah Berg.
Good evening, City Council. I should say good afternoon. Thank you, Ms. McDonald, for bringing this forward. I think it's important. Let me start by, I live at the Lamplighter Mobile Home Park. There's 227 homes. Nearly half the park exits that area. And let me tell you, the soccer fields were sold to the public as they would stay in that vicinity. The streets are overcrowded, okay? The school has massive amount of students. Each way there's 30 cars deep if you try to leave at certain periods of the time. The question is this the right project for the right location? It's not, okay? You don't even have a study showing you what's going to happen because you've approved thousands of homes in this community. The soccer fields, the families, the amount of people are going to go to that sports facility is going to grow. The streets are flooded. Where are those additional cars going to park? Okay, with this facility, he showed us a lot of nice things about it. I think it's a great presentation, but he didn't identify how he's going to mitigate the traffic issue. Traffic, sirens, we could go on, but this project is not the right location for it. I mean, it's a great project. It just doesn't belong in this area. And you know, you asked why this should be reviewed. Several people are in the audience, a lot of people. And you know something? I don't think you should have to fork over $2,000 to come to this body to say, hey, I don't like it, and we need a further review, because basically the Planning Commission doesn't live over there. These people do. And there's a lot of issues. I think it's just a really bad idea, okay? And if you haven't been over there, Councilman, I think you should go over there on a Saturday or when the school gets out, and you should see for yourself and experience what it's like. And you tell me, he showed an entrance for in case of fire engine. How is it going to get there in the middle of the afternoon when there's people leaving the school and it's 30 cars deep each way? Or how about on a Saturday? By the way, he forgot to tell you how many people are going to visit these family members during the weekend when there's a soccer game or something. Where are they all going to park? Are they going to have 85 spaces? I mean, half of that should be taken up. Again, you guys, it's your responsibility, city councilman, to sit down and listen to this. This project needs another overview, okay? It really does. The people, there's a lot of people here today, and I think it needs more review before it's even considered, and it shouldn't be considered.
Thank you very much. Oh, remember that, no yelling and... Sarah Berg.
My name is Sarah Berg, and I live in the general community, and I have a 90-year-old father who's going to be looking for a facility like this, and so I'm interested in having facilities like this built in the neighborhood.
Could you pull a microphone down so we can hear you better?
Can you hear me
Thank you.
now?
Yes.
Do I need to repeat that?
No, just.
I would like to express my support for the proposed assisted living facility. I believe that Oakmont has done a stellar job designing a project that we all would want our parents to live at, and that it would be a nice addition to the community. I also think the proximity of the school of the facility to the school across the street is a benefit and could create opportunities for children and seniors to interact. We need more facilities like this in Camarillo, and I hope that City Council will support the recent Planning Commission approval of this project. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Next, we have Shareem Gill. I may have your first name wrong. And then Paul Jerry's.
Thank you. Sherma Gill.
Oh, so sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council, for reviewing this. I do not live in the community. I'm here on another behalf, and that's the special needs children. There are 13 schools in this district, and Rancho Rosal is the school that has 5 programs for special needs. So every child that needs special needs, that give good education and good hands-on, is at Rancho Rosal. So we come from all over 13 different schools to Rancho Rosal. And I can tell in the parking, when I get there in the morning, I park 2 blocks down to walk to school. So I think those special needs kids, if you've ever been around them, sing happy birthday to them, and they hold their ears. I can imagine the sirens that will just upset them and set them back. So I think you should really consider that. Go into the special needs class and observe what those IEP programs are doing for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the next was Paul Juries? Juries? Is that a J or a T? Do we have a Paul? Oh, yeah. It probably is. Your N looks like an R to me, and I'm trying to make it more than it is, aren't I? Paul Jones. Maybe we should be on a first-name basis around here. Huh?
All right, my name is Paul Jones, and I live at the Wickford at Village of the Park. And I'm here to talk about the parking situation we have. We do not have enough parking for the Wickford as it stands. There's 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and 4-bedroom units in there. People only have a 2-car garage, and it's a small 2-car garage. Big trucks don't fit. Work vehicles don't fit. People have children who drive. People have roommate situations. We don't have enough parking there to begin with. This place is going to overflow into our parking. We already have to walk a couple blocks to begin with just to get there at night. And now this is going to create a situation where everybody is going to be scrambling for parking, fighting over parking, parking in the neighborhood, blocking other people's parking. It's going to displace everybody. Plus, the amount of crime that we already have I believe this is going to be a target for more people to hit parked cars. We're already having a problem with it. People are getting security cameras all over the neighborhood trying to catch the people doing it, but we're having a big issue, and this is going to bring it more in. Now, I also have a special needs child with sensory processing disorder. I do not want the extra sirens in the neighborhood. I do not want the extra noise in the neighborhood. I'm tired of having him go into a panic attack when he hears a siren. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm going to spell this last name. It's I know we had this problem the other night. It's D, I think, Haliwal. Thank you. Say for the record, too.
My name is Amandeep Dhaliwal.
Thank you.
I'm here to express my concern regarding this Oakmont senior living. I live right near to this community on the Devonport. My house is on the Devonport and Golden Pond intersection. Right now itself, I'm experiencing this traffic issues and noise problems. I cannot sleep peacefully at nighttime with my windows open. I have 2 kids. One is 5, one is 2, and it's really difficult for me to cross the road. And yesterday evening, I was trying to get some stats. The report says it gives the stats only how many vehicles will pass when this facility will be built. It shows only the vehicles which will pass, vehicles or the delivery vehicles for this one. But nobody studied the current traffic patterns over there. And I tried to check it in the span of 6 minutes at 7:30, which is not the peak time. I saw 18 vehicles passing through that area. So every 20 seconds, I see 1 vehicle. And this Devonport Road is just a 1/4 mile stretch. It's not a thorough road. It's just 1/4 mile stretch. And everyone who has to go to school and is coming from 101 towards north, mostly they take this road because it doesn't have any stop signs. And I can consider most of the emergency vehicles, if needed, they will pass through this road, creating more problem for me. And then looking at the report, city planner report, I mean, one thing I couldn't understand is how can this report say there is no impact to the school? I think this is totally wrong statement. And looking at that statement, I feel no due diligence was done to create this report. And then one more thing, correct? Looking at the traffic pattern, if I'm concerned for my kids, Oakmont management should also be concerned for the people for the elderly people who's going to stay there, and for some reason, if they have to cross the road. It's not a problem for me, it's going to be a problem for the elderly people also. So I really request you to review this decision and review the current traffic patterns and the noise patterns over there. And as one of my friends said, the Rancho Rosal is one of the school which is catering to the special needs children. And this report says no impact to school, which is totally unimaginable. And I don't have any more word for it, but please review this decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have James Schnickner.
Good morning, everybody. I'm James Schicker. Appreciate you having the hearing today. I'm not going to go over everything that was mentioned earlier, but I take exception to the Planning Commission decision and the meeting itself. They kept on talking about how this fits in the general plan of that community. They said it over and over again as if it was a vacuum, that nothing's happened in the last dozen years, where we know that many changes have been made over there. The park turned into a soccer park somehow, and it was obvious from the first day it was open that there wasn't enough parking over there, and it was going to spill into the neighborhood, and it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. The school, which I used to be PTA president there, originally had 425 families. It was supposed to be a neighborhood school. It's not a neighborhood school. It's got the biggest geographic area of any school in Camarillo. Everything south of 101 goes into Rancho Rizal. Now there's 825 families at that school. That's the biggest K-5 school in Camarillo. It's been modified beyond what anybody envisioned. We were supposed to have a shopping center over in that area. And the people that own the land didn't want to wait. Obviously, with all the development that's going to be happening in the next few years off of Lewis and everything else, there's total justification for having a grocery store there. But they didn't want to wait. So there's more high-density housing there. I don't know what will happen with that plot of land, whether it will be a smaller store. My guess is they're going to come back and say, hey, let's have some more high-density housing. So the point I'm trying to make is that this general plan has been modified beyond recognition. Okay? It's a completely different scenario than it was when it was first envisioned. Look, we all love living there, okay? Even with the problems that it has. But with all due respect to the Oakmont folks, this is going to exasperate the situation. The location over there is not a good location. And maybe if the school was a neighborhood school, a smaller neighborhood school, it might be more palatable. Maybe if they put more parking over in Wickford, that gentleman mentioned, or at the soccer park, or both, it'd be more palatable. But you've got a cauldron of all these things being thrown in, and now we're expected to have this facility there that I don't think is going to serve the community. Let me conclude by talking about the Planning Commission again. There was only one member, Chris Valenzano, that really even had questions or scrutiny the other night. The other four members really didn't talk about at all. No questions, took everything at face value. And they certainly didn't seem to want to take into account the citizens of our community. Thanks again for having this meeting, and especially thank you to Mr. Tremblay, who at the farmer's market the other day met with Lauren and McCoy and I for 45 minutes. We talked, he listened. Very appreciative of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Tim Dronsart.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council members. My name is Tim Dransart. I'm a resident of the Village at the Park community. I'm coming here today to voice my concerns about the new residential senior community that's proposed to be built at the location of Davenport and Village at the Commons. Firstly, I want to say that Village at the Park is a wonderful master plan community. It houses wonderful people. We're very tight-knit. As such, it has brought in a lot of children that all go to school at the Rancho Rizal. I have two children that attend there, and I walk them to school every morning. One of my observations upon walking my kids to school every morning is the tremendous bottleneck that we have located at Davenport and Village at the Common Drive. If you haven't been there, I know that during the last council meeting, you were all invited to go look at it and see what the actual traffic impact is. It's horrendous. I had the opportunity of walking to school and watching three people get in a fight at the corner of, it was a verbal fight, not a fist fight, but over the traffic conditions. Tensions are high in the morning. I refuse to even drive up in that area in the morning or at night. Now taking into account the 55-acre park that has gone in, we have traffic that comes all the way down Village at the Park and into Davenport from the soccer fields alone. When exacerbated by the school, the traffic is horrendous. The traffic impact reports that were done are outdated and not up to date. In addition, we have a new facility that's being built at Lewis and Pleasant Valley, all of which are going to assumably use Village at the Park Drive to drive into school. I support the communities of the elderly. I support my children and families. And quite honestly, they could not have picked a worse location in all of Camarillo to try and place this. I mean, I could go out and about. When you're looking at Davenport on that picture right there, in the morning, all of that area is filled up with cars from parents that are dropping their kids off at school. Those cars get displaced all the way down past East Park and into Fountain Drive on a daily basis. And there's just simply not the parking. I don't know how many people are going to be in there, but from what I understand, all of the residents of this new community are going to be allowed to have vehicles. I see about 16 to 18 vehicle spots there. I didn't count them individually. But where are these people going to park? Where are they going to drive? I haven't even got into emergency response, which is 3 to 4 units, typically, and you're going to have lights and sirens in conjunction with the traffic. I know I'm out of time. Thank you for listening, and I beg you to reconsider this. Thank you.
Thank you. This is another one of these names I'm going to have to spell because I'm not quite sure with the other letters. It's Alluwah. Oh my, okay. Can you tell me what it, or how close was I?
I think it's my handwriting that's not too good. I'm Amina Ahluwalia. I live at 352 Bristol Park Code. My house is right where the fire exit is, right in the corner, so Fountain and Bristol Park, and I'm going to be extremely impacted by this facility. I have 2 grandchildren, a newborn, 3 months old, and a 2.5-year-old. And to me, having these young kids in the backyard or, going to the school that's right across was the reason why I bought this house 3 years ago, that I could raise and be there for my grandkids. But now with the facility being built and also are being proposed to be built and having the fire engines and other emergency support systems coming in to help at all hours of day and night, my kids are telling me, Mom, there's no way we're going to be able to get the kids staying at your place because we don't know the kind of people that are going to be in the facility. Yes, they're going to be old, but that's not the reason. We're all going to get there. We are there. But I think, they're going to be mentally ill. We don't know if they're going to be schizophrenia patients or, more on serious illness side, and there are no walls to protect the patients or the people if there are those kind of, and if they're going to be driving, they're a hazard to the kids that are going to be on the roads playing. No consideration has been given to that, and I agree with all of the other comments that have been made by the residents who live in the neighborhood and have seen the traffic issues they've been through, and they go through it every day when they cannot make turns from Davenport or from Fountain onto Davenport. We need this, but this is not the right location. The location is really bad. We do not support, and we beg you to reconsider and do more due diligence. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And the last speaker sheet I have is Joseph Jehovich.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Joe Jehoic, and I've lived in Village at the Park for about a year now. My wife and I and our 3-year-old son, and as well as my mother, we all live on Belafonte, which is
probably about a block or a block and a half from the proposed facility. Now, my dad taught me at a young age, whenever you're trying to make a major decision, you want to use the Benjamin Franklin clause. The Benjamin Franklin clause is you list the pros and the cons. And whichever one outweighs the other, that's what you go with. So the cons of this facility, in my opinion, are the endangerment of the children, especially my 3-year-old son who will be attending Rancho Rosal, and which is the reason, Rancho Rosal is the absolute reason we chose to live in Village at the Park. We bought our house almost $1 million about a year ago. So many kids ride bikes, scooters, skateboards all throughout the neighborhood. Davenport has already been mentioned. That is where I would say 90% of people walk their children to school. So that is the busiest road. So the main entrance and exit of this facility is absolutely, without a question, the busiest road where kids and their parents walk up and down to take them to and from school. So possible deaths from said accidents. I mentioned the other night that my 61-year-old father was killed a couple years ago. He was ran over by a tow truck that didn't see him. So if a 61-year-old, 6-foot, 250-pound man cannot be seen by a tow truck, what do you think, a 5, 6, 7-year-old kid, what do you think is going to happen there? I don't think it's a matter of if, I just think it's a matter of when. Additional traffic from residents, their guests, delivery trucks, nurses, nurses' aides, physical therapists, respiratory and IV therapists, dietitians, cooks, servers, housekeepers, groundskeepers, HR, doctors, fire trucks, and EMT. In addition to, they mentioned a massage area at a barber shop or hair place. The increased noise from emergency sirens, for example, the developers cited Atria Las Posas as an example of the impact center like this would have on Ventura County. There were 208 times last year that the fire department responded to that facility. I could go on and on. So those are the cons. The pro of this facility is a living facility for seniors, which could be built anywhere else. That's the only pro. I encourage council members, developers, planners, I encourage all of you to come to Village at the Park and just park your car on Davenport at about 7:30, 8 a.m. and just watch. You'll see that there are hundreds of kids walking up and down on their bikes, on their scooters, and Davenport is the main street that the kids walk up and down. So the renderings are beautiful, the plans are beautiful. I'm sure you guys spent a lot of money on this, but they do not show the children. They do not show the chaos. They do not show the traffic. We appreciate you guys hearing our pleas, and we really hope that you overturn this decision. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. That is the last speaker sheet I have. Would anyone else in the audience like to address us this morning? Okay. If you come to the podium, give your name for the record, and then you can fill out one of those sheets and give it to the city clerk afterwards.
Sorry, I'm last minute. I just heard about it. My name is Shauna Kimball. I live in Santa Rosa Valley. My son just started Rancho Rosal about 3 months ago, and he has epilepsy. And whenever he hears loud noises, such as fire trucks, ambulances, he closes his ears. And he's not the only one. There are several children over there with sensory issues, and I just think that location would be terrible, terrible for those kids. We absolutely need more senior centers. I volunteer with many seniors. I have a huge heart for them, but that's not the place. That's too hard on those kids. And the gentleman that spoke about the mass trucks coming in and out, kids are going to get hit. It's bad. It's just the wrong spot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I do not have any other speaker sheets, so if there's anyone else, this is the time. I will tell council that we have 5 nonverbal. One says, please reconsider, as this is a horrible location for the facility for numerous reasons. It's detrimental to property values, causes traffic concerns, taking our parking spaces on the streets away from them. The fire lane right behind our house is a nuisance. The other one, just an oppose. Another opposed, I would like to request that we hold a town hall meeting so that the entire community can have an opportunity to have their voices heard. As many residents, I have not been informed about this proposed facility. And one more that is in opposition. Okay. I'll call up Jason Francisco, and I'll read the last two while you're coming forward. The last two more yellow cards. One is we oppose this facility due to the location and for safety reasons. Pickup and drop-off times near Rancho Rosal is heavily trafficked already. Turning out of the surrounding neighborhoods is already dangerous due to blind spots created by heavy street parking. Adding a facility with daily consistent traffic, unlike a church that would only have Sunday traffic, would create more safety concerns for those of us who live in the surrounding neighborhoods. And the last one is not good location due to numerous factors, traffic and noise. So with that, those are our nonverbal. And Jason.
Good morning, Mayor, and everybody on the panel today. I missed the rest of the engagement here today. I do apologize. I was outside working, but I wanted to make sure I'm here. I'm not sure what was presented, but I can't imagine my community members to have a flashy presentation. I'm sure they spoke from the heart today. We don't have flashy presentations. We don't have all the lawyers in the world. We don't have the wads of cash to put a stop to what's about to be built or could be built. But what we do have a community. I've been a member of this community for the past 12 years. This is my third time visiting this city hall the past 2 weeks. The very first time was 13 or 14 years ago. My brother-in-law and I heard about this development, that empty lot, and we were so excited. We went to the city because the city at that time had floor plans of what D.R. Horton and the Standard Pacific were about to build. So it's kind of difficult to be coming back to this place to be fighting on a community that I was so very much excited with 12 or 14 years ago. We have homes that we have invested our very hard-earned money, and while we don't have all of the flashy presentations, what we also have are the children. Children, I have 4 kids, 3 of them. 2 of them have already graduated from Rancho Rosal. 1 will graduate this June. 1 more in a couple of years. I have a niece, and I don't know all of the 800 kids, but I see them every day. I live on Fountain Street. I told you a couple of days ago, this is my front yard. Where that wall will be the future Oakmont, right in front of me, right now. And frankly, the crowd, the traffic with the school, honestly, it's part of the charm as to what Village at the Park is. It's understood. There's going to be traffic. The sports park, we can't undo that. We can't undo the school. But Oakmont, please, Oakmont representatives, we are not here speaking against you. We are not here speaking against the seniors. My mom, my dad, my father passed away, seniors themselves. We are not against seniors. We are against the idea of using that lot, knowing how crowded it is. It's so busy, it's unreal. And to have that property being used for that purpose will just all the more make this unbearable. So I ask you to please consider re-reviewing this for the sake of our community, for the sake of our children. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I noticed someone just dropped a speaker sheet off. If you want to come up and give your name for the record, and where did he go? Jeffrey, do you, here. Mr. Alomeri?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry. Is it okay if I present, I guess, documents? Or,
Sure. You can hand them to the city clerk there.
Yeah.
Name. Oh, and do please give your name for the record as well. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Mogiab Alamari. I'll probably go over these and then just hand it to you guys to review.
Sure.
My name is Mogiab Alamari. I've actually been a resident of Village of the Park since they first built the community. I have two kids who are 11 and 13. And so my concern is more with the safety of the kids. And in terms of the location of the project. The one thing I do want to, I guess, go over is compare similar projects in other cities to this one in Oakmont in Camarillo. I actually have pictures showing you location of all these other facilities and how they're placed in the community. That's very different than the way it's being proposed for this one. Every facility that's being proposed is usually on the outside of the community. It's near a major freeway, it's near a major intersection, crossroads. This is the only facility that we've seen when we research within all the comparables that's actually right into the middle of a community. It's not even that it's the middle of the community and it's on a cross street. These are single lane roads. As I left today and I'm kind of running late to come here, school was getting out and I observed the traffic again. It's a single lane. Right now, everyone's waiting to pick up the kids. I can't imagine what the wait is going to be like right now with the additional 80 to 200 cars coming in and out. My concern is not, I read the EIR and everything else. I don't think it's quite factual in terms of, or realistic. I think the number of vehicles that are coming in and out is actually going to be multiplied by 3. It's not just one emergency vehicle. It's not just one nurse coming in. It's also the people that are, cleaning the facilities. It's also visitors and so forth. I'm not opposed to the project itself. I'm opposed to the location, and my biggest concern is the kids. I'll give you one example, which is Oakmont Chino Hills. When I pass this up, you'll see the location. It's all near business and next to a major freeway. So this is Oakmont Chino Hills. Oakmont Whittier is surrounded by businesses. It's near residents, but they're on the outside of the residence. Brookdale, Camarillo, which is close to here, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with it. It's on the outskirt. It's not in the smack in the middle of a community. Atera of Camarillo is also local. It's also not in the middle of the community. It's on a major intersection. I pass by it often. And then Oakmont, Santa Clarita, which is surrounded completely by businesses and not in the middle of a community with major access to the freeway. Sorry. My other concern, I guess, from what the speaker was mentioning yesterday about the need for this senior assisted living, I agree with there is a need for it. The problem is this is not an affordable senior community. This is on the very high end of the luxury, and I think this is one of the reasons they do want it in this community. But it doesn't benefit us as a community. It benefits the company, and that is also a concern of mine. I'm going to hand these up to you at least to look and see kind of at least what our concern was. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, if you want to see these, Tony, I have a few more non-verbal cards, and I will read those. This is an opposition. I am concerned regarding the noise. When the noise wakes us up in the middle of the night, I can't sleep, and in the morning, I have to work. I'm exhausted. That will make it worse for me. I think that's what's. Another opposition with no comment, and a third opposition with no comment. Last call. Jeffrey, I have one more. And one more opposition. My main concern is safety. It only takes one mishap, and it shouldn't have to. We can't undo all of the buildings, but we still have the opportunity to make this right. Okay. With that is the last of the speaker sheets, last of the comment sheets. Okay, then I'm going to turn to our applicant. Do you have anything else you want to add now before we'll give you the last opportunity?
There's a number of things that we can go over this morning, and it would take quite a little bit of time to go through each one of the traffic studies and each one of the analysis that staff helped with, and staff's actual own visiting of different communities and seeing how the parking works there and how we relate to that. And we would need time to go through the entire staff report. But that being said, that we do realize, and we have built projects, close to and next to schools. There's a few that you had there. We have 3 times as many that are surrounded by homes that we can show you at a later date. The emergency response vehicle numbers were taken from a local community that is almost twice as large as this. So I think you need to take a look at the staff report and really view the actual numbers from what responses are in a facility similar to our size, which you have in the staff. Actually, staff had done that particular report. We realize that there is traffic there in the mornings and in the afternoons when the students are there. Carolyn Cole, our traffic engineer, and I were actually there this morning to watch it, and it is busy. Carolyn will kind of explain it a little bit in more detail. We're a 24-hour staffed community, so this puts us in a situation where the majority, not everyone, but the majority of our employees will be coming in before school hours, and they will be leaving somewhere around the time school actually gets out. And what we've done in the past is we've worked with our shift changes. Debbie from operations is here, and we've actually coordinated and worked our shift changes by a half hour this way or that way to keep ourselves out of that direct concern. And I'm taking up some time for Carolyn, she can explain it, but it really gets down to what I noticed today was, like most schools, it's just crazy making, and all the kids are walking to school, and it's wonderful, and it's fun to see that activity, but it's fairly well organized there. We were actually very impressed on how they were handling it, much better than most schools, I think, that we've seen in years past. But the aspect is that we're talking about not all day, not all night, not every day. These are short periods of time throughout the day. And we experienced about a 10, 15-minute rush that transpired, and then after that, everything was going to clear out. But I'm going to turn it over to Carolyn.
Yeah. If you can give us some highlights, because obviously,
Only highlights. I've worked with many elementary schools.
Could you give us your name?
I'm sorry. Carolyn Cole, Crane Transportation Group, consulting to the Oakmont project on specific things required by city staff to kind of fill out. And they primarily asked us to focus on trip generation, the operation of the facility in relation to parking demand, and so that's what we've provided. And as you know, this project provides more parking than the city code requires, and looking at some sample time periods that we prepared in the study, we feel that this is more than adequately parked, and it will not be using on-street parking in the area. The parking for this facility will be in its parking lots. Staffing shift changes are we deliberately avoid any kind of local area peaking characteristic. So I know you've already experienced Oakmont's ability to accommodate more setbacks, and in this case, Oakmont would also accommodate schedules as relate to the school. The school, my observations of the school this morning, we went out about 7:45 and watched through the 8:10 period. School starts at 8:10. And it's remarkably well handled and laid out. Take that from me. I've seen schools that don't have such a good situation. This is very well planned. They have lanes for drop-offs. The little kids have to be dropped off directly by their parents. They can't just walk in. The older kids can walk in, and that's handled by a crossing guard. Oakmont is very willing to work with additional safety features if the city would entertain doing that. So things like in-pavement flashing, actuated lights can be added to just highlight for the driver, someone's in the crosswalk. There are also pedestrian flashing signs that can be actuated along with the in-pavement flashers, and that's just something to consider. The city might not want it, but they're very effective in the right places. I'd be glad to answer any other questions. We did a project look at church use of the site. Most churches don't just have a Sunday service. They have schools, daycare, some kind of other services during the week that really are bigger than the church use sometimes. Certainly the services on a Sunday when there is a large gathering, then that was probably the peak time for a church. But anyway, churches have many, many functions in a community. And some churches, in fact, in Camarillo, will have other churches also sharing the facility. And so they'll have not only the one service in the main facility, but then another church will use it later in the day. So, churches, it would be an allowable use on this site. And but I think you would not find a use that is less impacting than this one with regard to traffic and parking.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from council?
I have questions. I don't know for which one, but I have various questions. So, first of all, there was a lady who talked about the mentally ill, and I had a different type of picture in my mind of the people who will be living there. So could you address that, please?
Yes, I can. Our license is for a residential care facility for the elderly, or commonly known as assisted living. And we are there to help residents in their requirements of daily living with medication reminders, helping with dressing, activities, transportation, food programs. In today's senior care communities and in all of our communities, we have a portion of our facilities set aside for memory care. So we do have memory care in all of our facilities. Now that we are getting to be a much older group, and everyone's health physically is going on for later and longer years, Alzheimer's and dementia, which I lost my mother to, is something that we need to address and take care of. And so we do have a special section in each one of our buildings set aside for memory care and dementia use. This is not a psych ward or people running around.
She specifically mentioned schizophrenic people and
Nothing
things
like that is in our facility. We're not allowed to do that. When people are assessed, they have to be assessed to stay within our licensing requirements for their care. This is not a mental institution. This is an assisted living community to take care of residents who need basic assistance.
And the people with dementia, are they in a separate area where it's more difficult for them to get out, or?
They're in a designed, specifically designed area of the building, which has keypad entry and exit. Their dining and things that take place for them are all in their area. Their activity areas is separate, and it is an area that's very secure for their
it's a segregated
for their
area.
safety.
It's a segregated area.
Correct. Yes.
There's a lot of talk about the visitors and the employees and where they would park, and you address the employee parking and the shifts. Visitors, could you tell us a bit about your experience in your other facilities? Do these people get a whole lot of visitors? Do they not get a lot of visitors? What are the patterns, if you have patterns?
We do, and I'm going to let Debbie speak to that. Debbie Enfield is our Director of Operations, and she works with this on a day-to-day basis in every one of our communities, and I think she can answer this in more detail for you.
Great. And again, can you state your name for the position for the record?
Sorry. Debbie Enfield, Regional Director of Operations.
And what we typically experience is that we have adult children who often are still working as well. And so if they do come to visit, it's for dinner with their loved one, our residents. They come on the weekend. We also have our residents are typically 87 years old. That's our average. They come to live with us because their doctor has told them that they're no longer safe to live at home, and that typically includes driving. And driving is something that they've have to give up as well on any kind of daily basis. We could have visitors come if people aren't working or what have you, but by and large, we see most of our visitors in the afternoon, late afternoon, or evening for dinner.
Thank you. And the one other thing, can you give us because there seems to be a lot of concern about the number of people who will be having cars and driving. In your other facilities, is there a general percentage of your residents who still have vehicles and are driving?
It's interesting because at one of my communities that we recently opened, I had 14 residents who still drove out of 85 units. At our community in San Diego, we currently only have 2 residents, and it's a brand new community as well. So it really depends on the resident mix.
And what size is that facility?
The one in San Diego is 75 units.
Thank you.
And how about the first one I'm sorry, but the first one you mentioned was 85 and 45 had cars?
14.
No,
14.
14. Okay.
Okay, those are all my questions for them.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kildee, any questions on the facility? Mr. Tremblay? No. I have one, and I think there's a little bit of a misconception of maybe out in the general public of what this is going to be. The word affordable has been thrown out there. Can you tell us the average cost of monthly rent for this facility?
We don't have the numbers yet at this point. So, it's based on the market. Typically, our Whittier community, we're looking at an average unit cost probably, and again, keeping in mind.
Right, big average.
Return, et cetera, starting at $4,000. And again, that includes all their meals, their housekeeping and laundry.
Okay, great. All right, anything else from council? Great, thank you very much. Okay, with that,
I have a comment before we get started,
Okay.
because a lot of people talked about the park, which was sold to them as being a local park, and it turned into a soccer field. And I just want to say, I was here when this started, and at the very first public hearing, the very first presentation, it was presented to the city council as being a soccer park. It was talked about as being a very large soccer park. I don't know what the salesman said, but as far as the plans and the specific plan and anything that was ever presented to the city council, it was always supposed to be a soccer park.
It was a 55-acre sports park.
Sports park, but soccer was specifically talked about. We had council chambers filled with soccer parents supporting that soccer park. And that was the very first night I remember ever talking about this. So it didn't just turn in from something that was a local park into a sports park.
I think one of the things that may have changed a little bit are the
parking.
the tournament use that they're doing now versus what we might have heard back
Well, they
then.
talked about tournaments.
They're doing, national tournaments. Anyway, that may have been a change. Okay. We need to make a decision. Obvious before us would be whether to send this on for review. I just want to make a comment again, since I'm the one that brought this to us. I was remembering going back in history, going back to the parcel that's across the street from Camarillo High School. And that parcel was zoned commercial, I believe it was. And we had many, many people come before us, the last one being, I believe it was a drugstore or a convenience store of some kind. And those of you who see it today see it as homes that have now connected to that track, and there's basically a wall across from Camarillo High School. And remembering back to all those discussions, sometimes what the general plan says and what reality doesn't always, work out to be that way. And so I think, in my mind the other night, I was thinking of that, thinking, okay, maybe there is a time when the city council needs to step back and look at this again and say, just because it was in the general plan, does it still make sense? I also got out, I'm actually impressed that I found it this easily, but there's the draft EIR of Village at the Park, and you can see all my tags and all my all my little flags are still there. I was trying to remember exactly what the study traffic was and noise was. It's been a lot of years. This is dated 2001, and while as you can see, I read every word of it, but I can't, this many years later, can I tell you exactly what everything is in there? So I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe we need to look at it again because we need to refresh our own memories exactly what it was. And if indeed we're basing our traffic studies, as this is our base, then maybe that's something that we need to talk about or at least review it. So those are the two things that were in the back of my mind the other night when I was thinking, should I bring this and ask that we talk about it? So that's kind of my logic. And so with that, who would like to start? Do you need comments? Or
I'll start.
Mr. Kildee?
Yeah. I'd like to thank everybody for being here, and I want to make a comment, too, that I'm not here to change anybody's personal opinions on this. I was actually mayor when the Village at the Park was approved, and you heard all the good things about it. Let me tell you, it was a battle to get Village at the Park approved. I'm very proud of Village at the Park. I think it's one of the best developments that we've got in our city. And the demand, whether the economy's been up or down, to live out there has remained strong, and I commend everybody out there that lives there. I just want to remind everybody that it was not an easy process to go through to get that approved. One of the people I know very well in town always reminds me that the last developments of a city are always the toughest. The easy ones go first, and you're saddled with the more challenging ones. What I'm elected to do here is to go by the policies and the procedures that have been set up since 1964 in our city here. I think they've been followed. I think for the most part, they've been very effective in what we've tried to do here. We have a planning commission. When we were first incorporated in 1964, there was about, I believe, a year where they didn't have a planning commission, that all of the projects went before the city council. The city council decided that probably isn't the best way to do it, so let's start with the planning commission here so they can filter all of the citizens' concern there and have another layer to be able to hear about the pros and cons of whatever development comes. Now, keep in mind, Camarillo was probably maybe 10 to 15 to 17,000 people, and it was a lot of it was open territory, so there was a lot of activity back in those days. If you look at what is proposed here, and again, I'm not here to change anybody's opinion, I just want to look at the facts here. It is a permissible use here. I read, and I believe there's some 190 conditions of approval of this. The applicant has followed all the policies and the procedures that I'm aware of. The staff gave one of the best reports that I've seen on this, and I feel that they've tried to address almost, if not all, of the issues that's been presented to this. I did call the Planning Commission. I looked at the tape. It appears to me that there was a fair and an impartial hearing with the Planning Commission here. We've had another second public hearing today, which I think is very, very important here. So as far as the transparency on this, I think it's been very, very strong. This is a change of use from nothing on this property to something on this property, and that in itself is going to be a change. I understand that. We understand all of that factor here. But if you look at what's happened here, with this particular project, it's my opinion that they followed all the procedures, they've had the meetings, the issues have been addressed, maybe not to everybody's agreeable, but they have been addressed here. And it's my opinion that it does not need to be, it's my opinion that we follow what the Planning Commission's recommendation is. Now, having said that, there is another option out there. The mayor did announce what the other options, we've used that in the past, and that's certainly another options out there. So those are my comments at this particular point.
Mr. Trimley, Mrs. Craven?
Doesn't matter.
I yield to you, Sharon.
Okay. I agree with Mr. Kildee. This is part of the specific plan. We were always told a church was always mentioned, a church, but they always followed that with some other type of facility. And it was real clear at the very beginning that another church wasn't going to be coming. I think that was clear to the owners of the property even before they realized that they were not going to be able to get a grocery store to come in. And they tried and tried. They really did to get some type of a grocery store. But if you look at grocery stores down the lane, well, in other parts of town, we're losing grocery stores, not gaining them. I don't live in Village at the Park, but I'm there 4 to 5 mornings a week. I do realize there is some traffic, but there is around all of the schools. Schools, by the way, the school district often changes where they have various programs. The programs they have at one school are not always there. They move them from one school to another as the schools fill up and other schools start to have fewer children in those neighborhood schools, although they're getting fewer and fewer neighborhood schools and more specialized schools. I've noticed that. But this is a use that was allowed in the specific plan. The general plan specifies that this type of facility can be there. Everybody says put it in another place. There are fewer and fewer other places for this type of facility. And as more types of treatments are developed and more types of medication are developed, all of us are living longer. We need more of these types of facilities because we're an aging population. I did drive around to all of the facilities like this in Camarillo yesterday, and I looked. The only one that is really up against residences is the one that keeps changing its name, and I don't know what it's called now, but it's on Santa Rosa Road, right next to Santa Rosa Plaza. Right behind it and adjacent with a wall, as one of these rows of homes would be, is a group of Leisure Village homes. On the other side is a larger number of Pardee homes. When we approved that facility, some of the people from Leisure Village came and complained that they feared they would be bothered by the noise from the emergency vehicles coming to respond to calls at the facility. Since then, I have not heard, and I've been out to Leisure Village forums 3 or 4 times since then, and I have not, I've heard a lot of things they'd like different about the community, but I've not heard a single complaint from those people about that facility or the noise generated by the emergency vehicles. Additionally, at that public hearing, we did not hear from anybody who lived in the Pardee homes adjacent to it, and they share a wall. They're not across the street. And I have yet to hear from anybody on that street complaining about the noise. So I believe that I agree, the Planning Commission was unanimous, and you don't know how rarely that happens anymore. It's not, but all of the planning commissioners agreed that this was appropriate because it has the correct general plan designation as part of the specific plan that was approved. And I agree that I do not believe we need to review this.
Mr. Tremblay.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and thank you to my colleagues for their comments. A couple of preliminary things. First of all, I want to thank everyone sincerely for their comments and for sharing their perspectives with us today. It's very appreciated. I had the privilege of hearing a lot of input last weekend as well. So again, it's much appreciated. Secondly, I have reviewed the materials, the staff report to the Planning Commission, the CEQA documentation, et cetera. And I do have questions regarding the project, but I haven't asked them today. It's probably no surprise to anyone that I approach this from my training and background as an attorney. And with that said, let me share with you my perspective. The item that's in front of us right now is a very narrow procedural, not a substantive issue, but a procedural issue. So I want to bring it back to why we're here today and this specific item. We're talking here today about a process issue. We're not talking about merits, in my opinion. And again, this is my perspective. So I want to emphasize that a decision on A, the merits of the project, and B, the grounds for an appeal that have been articulated by many speakers today, if an appeal is filed, is a separate matter from today's vote. Today, again, is about a procedural issue. There's not a decision on the project today from this council. So, turning to the process question, I'm not in favor, typically, of an order of review by the City Council. Why? Because I have a concern about, and forgive me for my training, I have a concern about the precedental effect of that, and Mr. Kildee spoke to that relative to the Planning Commission proceedings. My view is that if a matter comes to the City Council, ordinarily, typically, it ought to come by appeal. And that appeal remedy exists notwithstanding whatever this council decides on this order for review option. It's not this morning anymore, is it? This afternoon. So I don't support an order of review. The appeal remedy remains available, and if that appeal comes to the City Council, then I will have questions on the merits of the project at that time. Those are my views.
Okay. Well, it's obviously where this is going, but I'm going to save my piece anyway. Our city municipal code provides exactly for this. The City Council has the right, and in my opinion, the City Council has the duty, when the time arises that the City Council needs to review a decision of the Planning Commission. This wouldn't be the first time, and it probably won't be the last. And I think it's our obligation as a City Council, when we see an item come before us that has upset as many of the neighbors, that we at least have the obligation to hear it. What do we have to lose? You've got a few hours of your time to listen to it, and then you make a decision, but you don't make that decision based on a few comments. And if you remember, we opened this whole hearing saying we're not talking about the project today, we're only talking about whether we're going to hear the appeal or hear an order of review, excuse me. So everyone wasn't given the opportunity necessarily to say everything they wanted to say about the project, because we were focusing on whether we would hear it or not. So to say that we don't want to take the opportunity because we don't want to set a precedent, well, it exists in the municipal code, and since I've been here on the city council, we have done it. I referenced back to the high school project, was on the books for many, many, many years, and many projects came before us, and the last one was indeed a convenience store right across from the high school. Why did we change it? We changed it because it wasn't the appropriate spot. So my personal opinion from what I've heard about the project is a beautiful project. My kids have where they're planning on sending me. Yours sounds better, so I'll let them know about it. But I'm not sure personally whether it is the right spot. A lot has changed in that community since we looked at this EIR. Let's take iMation and that whole reuse of that. And all of those homes that are being built along Lewis Road, that didn't exist when we looked at Village at the Park. So what is wrong with taking the opportunity, as our municipal code allows us? This isn't setting a new precedent. This exists. What is wrong with us taking the opportunity to review it? If you all still agree with them, then fine. But we have done what I personally believe is our duty as a council member to listen to our community and become involved sometimes in decisions. Can they raise the $2,028? Is that the correct amount, Mr. Vaca?
2,168.
Oh, 2,168. So that would have to be filed, and what else would they have to file by 5 o'clock today?
An application form that's available on our city's website.
It's on the website, and it doesn't take a lot of detailed data, just name, address, etc.
Correct, and a reason for the appeal.
Okay. So I guess bottom line to me is I personally have enough questions about particularly traffic and how things have changed since that general plan was, and specific plan for Village at the Park was adopted, that to me it would warrant looking at it. So obviously I'm the minority here, but I had to have my say. I do want to make a comment on the facility on Santa Rosa Road, though. That facility has a commercial, the Santa Rosa Plaza right beside it. And a lot of the parking in Santa Rosa Plaza is used by members of that facility. I happened to be at the dentist yesterday morning, and I saw two of them park in Santa Rosa Plaza, and the nurses walked over to the facility. It also is up against a major thoroughfare, so you talk about noise. Noise on Santa Rosa exists. So it's not bringing new noise necessarily into a community. I personally would like to know more about the noise study. I don't believe you can compare church traffic to that of fire engines and police ambulances is on a routine basis, and whether indeed they would use their sirens and how close that siren use would be to the facility and to the school. To me, there are just a lot of questions that I would like to hear the answers to. So again, I say to all of you, you could change your mind, because certainly what's wrong with taking a few hours out of our lives to listen something and to participate in the process. Oops, you're not supposed to clap. So with that, does anyone want to make a motion? Well, I'm going to make a motion, and we'll see if we get a second, because I'm going to follow this all the way through. I would make a motion to issue an order of review and to set it for the next council member that it would fit on the calendar.
Council meeting?
Next, did I say council meeting? Yes.
Council member.
Oh, I'm sorry, council meeting. Okay, so I do not see a second, so that takes care of our meeting then. So with that, if there's no other business before the City Council, we are adjourned. Again, if indeed you want to appeal, you have till 5 o'clock today. Go to the Community Development Department, and remember, it is a fee that is refunded if you are successful and not if you are not in the appeal. Thank you all for coming.